Spoiler ahead, watch out, and take care. The story begins with a man named Yo Hyub who catches his wife having sex with another man. An embittered Yo Hyub then steps in and kills the man. Not only that, he also killed his own wife. 6 years later, there is a child who is often bullied named Yong Ho. When he came home from school, he was often alone and stopped under a bridge to clean his bag in the river. Suddenly he heard the phone ring. Yong Ho turned his head and saw a girl hiding under the bridge. Just as Yong Ho is about to leave, suddenly a car on the bridge asks for a girl in yellow. Yong Ho looks at the girl in front of him for a moment, then says if he doesn't see anyone. The car left and so did the girl. Arriving at home, Yo Hyub, who is Yong Ho's father, is busy cleaning their cattle dog cage. So after Yong Ho's mother died, Yo Hyub and his son moved to a village. Yong Ho helps a lot with housework, from drying clothes to cooking. Yo Hyub is so indifferent to Yong Ho that he never even seems to speak. But deep down, he loves his son very much. Yong Ho also has a very good painting talent since childhood. The next day at school, the girl Yong Ho met as a new student in his class. The girl's name is Jisoo. After school, Yong Ho is back under the bridge and sees Jisoo's presence. Realizing Yong Ho was there, Jisoo thought that Yong Ho was sent by a bad boy in class to prank her. Yong Ho then apologizes and leaves. Feeling guilty for accusing Yong Ho, Jisoo invites Yong Ho to fly a kite, but unfortunately Yong Ho is not good at flying a kite. In the morning before leaving for school, Yong Ho helps his father at the dog farm. Yong Ho then asks for the unused chain and also asks for extra money on the pretext of buying school supplies. After that, Yong Ho took a very clean and fragrant bath. Yong Ho comes to Jisoo with a new appearance and brings food from the money his father gave him. Yong Ho intends to invite Jisoo to eat together, but Jisoo refused and threw the food away. The action is seen by class thugs led by Joy. It scared Yong Ho. When Jisoo wants to leave, she is held back by Joy. Unbearable to see Jisoo being bullied by Joy, Yong Ho tries to help her but gets beat up by them instead. Yong Ho doesn't dare fight back, until their homeroom teacher notices it. While treating Yong Ho's wounds, the teacher tries to encourage him and asks Yong Ho to be more confident. According to the teacher, Yong Ho should not be underestimated by anyone because Yong Ho is a gifted child. Jisoo, on the other hand, is eating with her father who always forces Jisoo to be an accomplished child. At that time Jisoo then remembered that her father was holding another woman. Jisoo is very sad because she feels her parents have abandoned. Jisoo, who at that time wanted to show her exam results, suddenly met a man who tied her up. When she comes home from school, Jisoo argues with her mother because she often gets drunk. Jisoo seems unnoticed by her own parents and finally decides to go to the bridge. There she sees Yong Ho trying to fly a kite. Jisoo then walks over to him. There she confides about her chaotic family. She was confused why she had to be born into the world if her own parents act like they don't know each other. This story from Jisoo makes Yong Ho sad. The wind blew and Yong Ho's kite flew high. Jisoo and Yong Ho played together for the first time. They rejoiced and flew kites in the dark night. From a distance, Yo Hyub sees his son's joy and is overjoyed to see the smile on Yong Ho's face. After playing, Yong Ho also talks about his life. Yong Ho tells that he moved to the village after his mother died. Since then no one has asked Yong Ho to talk. Yong Ho only knows that his mother died in an accident. Yong Ho then asks Jisoo to be his friend so they can talk to each other and listen to each other. The next day they grew closer and spent a lot of time under the bridge. Yong Ho then gives a gift which is a painting of Jisoo's face. Jisoo is very happy and likes the painting. At night, Jisoo, who is alone at home, suddenly gets a call from the taxi driver asking for her address. It turns out that Jisoo's mother is drunk and the driver is confused about their home address. Since Jisoo doesn't know her current home address, she asks her mother's whereabouts. Jisoo then goes to pick up her mother. On the way, Yo Hyub accidentally sees Jisoo and her drunk mother. Yo Hyub finds out that Jisoo and her mother are new to the village. He then offers a ride for Jisoo and her mother. Jisoo initially refuses, but Yo Hyub says that he is Yong Ho's father. Knowing this, Jisoo accepts an offer from Yong Ho's father. The atmosphere is very dark and quiet. Yo Hyub tells about the painting of Yong Ho that is attached to the dashboard of his car. Unexpectedly, the painting reminds Jisoo of something bad that happened to her. She then looks at Yo Hyub to confirm it again. Jisoo thinks back to when she was a kid, where someone was killed in front of her. She then ran into the parking lot and saw her father walking with another woman. Jisoo cries in terror and that's when the killer catches her. Jisoo begins to realize that Yong Ho's father is a murderer. The next day, Jisoo explained to Yong Ho that last night his father had brought her home. Jisoo also questions his father's car, which is always displaying Yong Ho's paintings. Yong Ho then shows all his paintings to Jisoo. Jisoo then asks permission to take all the paintings home. When she looks at all the paintings belonging to Yong Ho, she again remembers where she was held in the car by an assassin. Jisoo becomes more and more convinced that Yo Hyub is the killer she met that time and almost kills her too. Luckily someone came and managed to save her. Jisoo is traumatized by the dark memory and it looks so vivid in her head. That night, Young-ho sends a message to Jisoo and Jisoo immediately meets him under the bridge. It turns out that Young-ho is being bullied by Joy and Joy friends. They then tell Young-ho and Jisoo to kiss. Because he was silent, Young-ho was kicked and even threatened with a knife. Jisoo then says that Joy is the loser and he challenges Joy to stab her with a knife. But Joy instead beats Jisoo with his hand. This infuriates Young-ho and takes Joy's knife. Young-ho then cuts Joy's face with the knife. Joy cries in fear and his friend panics. They then run away and Young-ho drops his knife nervously. He then tries to calm Jisoo, who is speechless at the sight of Young-ho's actions. But Jisoo stays away and chooses to leave. Jisoo sees that there is a Yo-hyub trait in Young-ho's body while Young-ho doesn't know why Jisoo stays away from him. The next day, Joy's father and Joy's homeroom teacher meet Yo-hyub at his house. He complains that Young-ho has hurt his son. Joy's father is furious because according to Joy's father, his good son has been beaten by Young-ho. The teacher also provides evidence of the knife used by Young-ho. But Yo-hyub just stays silent. It made Joy's father to be emotional. The existence of the knife makes Yo-hyub remember who he really is. But he tried to muffle it and silence Joy's parents. Yo-hyub then apologizes. When Young-ho came home, Jung-hyub immediately scolded Young-ho. Young-ho explains that Joy and his friends were the first to bother Young-ho. But Yo-hyub suspects that the cause of the problem is Jisoo's presence. He tells Young-ho to keep quiet no matter what and forbids him from seeing Jisoo. After that, Yo-hyub took the chain under the bridge that was previously used to help Jisoo down the bridge. Then he goes to Jisoo's house. Yo-hyub wants to meet Jisoo's parents and explain the incident that happened to their child. But at that time Jisoo was alone and her parents weren't home. Yo-hyub's arrival scares Jisoo. With a knife Jisoo tries to approach and Yo-hyub can only peek through the gap in the door. Knowing that Jisoo's parents aren't home, Yo-hyub then decides to leave. Jisoo approaches and peeks to make sure Yo-hyub is gone. But it turns out that Yo-hyub hasn't left yet and startles Jisoo until she drops the knife. Yo-hyub begins to realize that Jisoo is the child he wanted to kill first. A frightened Jisoo tries to call her parents but there is no answer. The phone then rings and it turns out to be Young-ho. Young-ho questions why Jisoo shunned him. Young-ho thinks it's because he's weak and smells like a dog. He wants to change for the better and asks Jisoo to talk. But Jisoo says that the reason she stayed away from Young-ho was because of Young-ho's father. This leaves Young-ho confused and Jisoo turns off the phone. Yo-hyub then goes into Young-ho's room. He sees Young-ho's painting on the study table and after that Yo-hyub then leaves. Yo-hyub remembers what he did earlier. His identity as the killer he had been trying to hide all along was now known to the child who had managed to escape him. Yo-hyub then goes somewhere. Meanwhile Young-ho sees a white dog in a cage that has died. Young-ho then finds out about his father figure who has rarely spoken to him. He looks at his mother's photo and realizes that there is a knife in his father's drawer. After that Yo-hyub returned home. Young-ho, who is still awake, silently watches his father washing the bloodied knife. Feeling snooped, Yo-hyub then closes the door. From there Young-ho felt that his father was hiding something. The next day after not seeing Young-ho at home, Yo-hyub then leaves in his car. At night, when Yo-hyub arrived at the destination he wanted, he immediately killed two people who were on the beach. Young-ho turns out to be in the car to follow his father and he accidentally sees his father's actions. Young-ho is in shock and realizes that his father is a murderer. After the victim died, Young-ho then left there. Yo-hyub hears Young-ho footsteps. On the run, Young-ho calls Jisoo and questions whether his father had been trying to kill Jisoo. Young-ho doesn't know if he should hate his father or what. Because his father is a good person to him. On the other hand, Yo-hyub is seen talking to himself in the car. Meanwhile Young-ho keeps crying because the only person he has is a murderer. After that incident, Young-ho apparently didn't come home. Young-ho stays at Jisoo's house and tries to apologize to Jisoo. The next day, Young-ho doesn't go to school, but outside class hours, he met his teacher who had just come home. The teacher asks the reason Young-ho doesn't go to school, but Young-ho didn't respond. Young-ho then asks if someone can change for the better. The teacher then answered yes, and the teacher explained that the child's attitude would usually be similar to that of his parents. As the saying goes, blood flows from the family. The explanation given by his teacher made Young-ho cry even more. The teacher became confused and Young-ho then left. At night, Young-ho, who was eating with his father, then questions the white dog that had died in the cage. After that he also asked how his mother died. Yo-hyub just stays silent and doesn't answer. Since his question was not answered, Young-ho then left. Now Young-ho knows that his father lied to him. Young-ho then cuts his skin until it bleeds. He hates because he has the blood of a murderer. The next day in class, Joy's friend takes pictures of the area of Jisoo's body while she is sleeping. Not long after that, Young-ho came and immediately beat him. Joy, who was also there, asked Young-ho to stop, but Young-ho was not afraid and he then approached Joy. They then fight. Joy beats Young-ho, but Young-ho turns things around. The fight is noticed by the homeroom teacher and makes Young-ho go through the classroom window. When she comes home from school, Jisoo sees a torn painting of Young-ho under the bridge. She tries to call Young-ho very worriedly, but Young-ho's number is no longer active. Jisoo then cries and leaves, but apparently Yo Hyub is already stalking her. While trying to follow Jisoo, Young-ho suddenly comes and holds his father's car. He takes the painting on the dashboard of the car and destroys it. This makes Yo Hyub sad, because now his son knows who he is. The son he loved so much now hated him. That night, Young-ho takes a knife from his father's drawer and plans to kill his father. But Yo Hyub knows about it. Young-ho then backed off. Yo Hyub can't help but tear up his eyes. Young-ho injures himself again. He still remembered his teacher's words about the blood flowing in him. Young-ho doesn't want his father's blood to be there. Young-ho tries to get it out. He was afraid that he would later become a figure like his father. At the same time, Yo Hyub becomes more and more stressed. In his head there was a whisper that always bothered him. He talks to himself and imagines someone is in the room, and that shadow was none other than his wife. Yo Hyub always remembers that when he was going on a business trip, he caught his wife cheating on him. Yo Hyub gets angry and kills them right away. Until now Yo Hyub is hallucinating and feels like his wife is still alive inside his head. Yo Hyub then punctures his eardrum so he can't hear his wife's whispers anymore. The next day, the teacher and Jisoo went to Young-ho's house to meet Yo Hyub. The teacher wants to ask how Young-ho hasn't been to school for the past few days, but Yo Hyub immediately shooed the teacher away in a very disrespectful manner. Not desperate, the teacher and Jisoo then went and looked for Young-ho's whereabouts. Young-ho turns out to be hiding in the house and doesn't want to come out. They think Young-ho isn't home and decide to go home. Teacher and Jisoo then parted ways, but after a few steps Jisoo saw Young-ho running. Jisoo then immediately follows him. It turns out that Young-ho chased and met his teacher. When confronted, Young-ho is silent when asked by his teacher. Young-ho takes a knife from his pocket and the movement of Young-ho's hand makes the teacher hurt and faint. He then dragged his teacher body. Young-ho says his teacher is a good person and Young-ho wants to be a good person too. He wants to drink the teacher's blood to become a good person. Lucky Jisoo soon came and tried to stop Young-ho. Jisoo asks why Young-ho did all this. Not long after, Yo Hyub comes and sees the crowd. The residents carried the body of the teacher who had fainted. Yo Hyub approaches and notices a familiar knife there. Meanwhile, Young-ho and Jisoo manage to escape and run together. Young-ho intends to leave the village and Jisoo also wants to go with him. Yo Hyub then searches for his son's whereabouts. Not long after, Yo Hyub manages to see the two of them. Yo Hyub chases them until they enter the forest. They finally get caught and in annoyance Yo Hyub beats up his own son because he said before that Young-ho should just keep quiet and don't do anything. Yo Hyub decides to kill Jisoo because he feels that the cause of all this is Jisoo. Yo Hyub blames Jisoo for coming into their lives and ruining everything. But Young-ho manages to get up. From the falling knife, Young-ho directly stabs his own father. Then Young-ho asks if Yo Hyub killed his mother. Yo Hyub can only nod his head. Hearing that, with tears and pain he's trying to endure, Yo Hyub tells Young-ho to stab the knife deeper so that Yo Hyub dies. Young-ho then couldn't help but cry. Now his father is gone and there is no one in his life now. In the end they walked in the snow. The film is finished. Thank you for those of you who have watched to the end. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. See you in the next video.